Hi, everybody. All right. It is a joy to be here. We'd like to especially, it's a joy to have all of our guests here who are here for the weekend and everyone who came out for the day also. This is the one Sunday a year so far that we have not had services out at our temple in Beaverton, and we hold our Sunday service here, and it's just a joy to do this. It seems like last Labor Day was only a year ago. It goes by goes by quite fast. Anyway, so we better begin with a reading. This is Yogananda's book. It's called Whispers from Eternity. He said, if you want to know me, read my whispers. And since one of our topics this morning is on desire, this is number 122, Satisfy My Soul Hunger. Does this sound okay? I hear crackling. It's okay. So this is a beautiful reading. O all-pervading Spirit, the breeze of thy inspiration has removed every cloud from my heart. The firmament of my mind is now clear. Purified, I behold only thee everywhere. The sunshine of thy joy spreads rapidly to the farthest shores of my being. After long ages of hunger, I feed on thy light. By thy grace and by my constant wakefulness in thee, may this joy be mine forever, forever, and forever. Om. Amen. So, thank you. Our other topic this morning of We Are Children of the Light reminded me of the story of the little boy that was walking along a beach one day when he spots this matronly woman sitting on a blanket. So he goes up to her and he asks her a question. He says, "Are you a Christian?" And she replies, "Yes." And he says, "Well then, will you hold my quarter while I go swimming?" A wise man was walking along the path one day when he spots this man, and this was, I believe, in India. He sees this man just standing there in the path, and he has one leg completely up. And he's looking at him, and he thought, well, this is kind of a strange practice. I wonder what tradition it is. I wonder why he's doing this. But then he comes a little closer, and he happens to look into his eyes. And Yogananda always said the eyes are the window of the soul. And he looks into his eyes, and he sees so much joy. And not a superficial joy from maybe finding something on sale, though that is a lot of fun, but a really deep, deep joy that it moves him so much that he has tears in his own eyes. And he realizes that joy must come from a place so deep inside. We've been talking about inspiration and joy and kindness and peace all weekend. And when we begin to taste those qualities, we realize that's what we're really looking for. And the things of the world. Desire is our other topic. Yogananda has a chant, "Oh, desire, my great enemy, is giving me lots of trouble." And then I always add, "Oh, my." There's a beautiful book called God Alone, written by Sister Gyanamata, who was Yogananda's foremost woman disciple. She came to Yogananda in her 60s, and she ended up living at Mount Washington. And one of her main jobs was to write letters to devotees, to disciples, to truth seekers who just had questions about the path, about the teachings. But she writes in her book, she had a little room in the attic, I believe it was, as her room where she lived. Maybe you could visualize a Laura would, I don't know, but it was something like that. And whenever I hear attic room, I always think of a small space, but I don't know how big it was. And at one point, she was asked to give that room up. And she thought, why? Why am I being asked to give this room up when it's not hurting anyone? When it's so small, what's the story? Why? And she was struggling with that. And finally she hears a voice that says, because nothing is yours. And she realized, nothing is ours. We're warned in the Gita about desire. desire for things of this world, and even for somebody that's on the path. Here, Gyanamata, Sister Gyanamata, was Yogananda's foremost disciple. It's a tricky thing, isn't it? But are all desires bad? There's desires for God, desires for beauty, desires for goodness. Those are good qualities. Those we want to cultivate. And I think it was yesterday, David was talking about the story of the beggar who came home after a day of begging. What happens when we give back? What happens when we give up our little meditation room? This beggar had been out all day begging, and he comes home and he sees in the distance the great king coming towards him. And he wonders, well, maybe he's going to come and visit me, but he wasn't sure. And then he sees the great king starting to approach him, and he gets closer. And the beggar gets excited. He goes, I think he's going to come and visit me. And then sure enough, he comes right up to the beggar. And the beggar's thinking, I wonder what he's going to give me. How many times have we had that thought? I wonder what life will give me. I wonder what the world will give me. I wonder. And then here, what does the great king do? He opens his hand, right in front of the beggar. Many of us know the story, as if saying, what are you going to give me? And the beggar is appalled. And how many times are we offended? How could you ask me to move from this little room? How could you ask me to give one more thing when I've given so much? And the beggar is appalled. How could the king who has everything, and I seemingly have nothing, ask me for one more thing? So the beggar reaches into his tiny satchel, and it was rice. He pulls out 1 grain of rice. And he gives the great king this 1 grain of rice. And then the great king goes home. It's the end of the day. And at the end of the day, the beggar, goes into his home. And then he's emptying out this little satchel of rice, empties it out onto the table. And what does he see? He sees that 1 grain of rice has turned to gold. And then he realizes, what if I had given everything? What if I had given everything? What if I lived with total abandonment, total surrender, total adventure? Somebody had given us a card right around the time when we bought Laurelwood. To enjoy the flavor of life, it said, take big bites. What if we took big bites? What if we really just gave of ourselves? What if we truly lived in that inspiration? Somebody said yesterday, we've just had a beautiful weekend. What if we lived like this all the time? What if we helped each other to find that inspiration all the time? And it's beautiful that the affirmation for this weekend is on inspiration. And I looked up the definition of inspiration. We've been sharing lots of definitions on it. But as Diva said earlier, it's to breathe in. And what do we do when we meditate? We breathe in, and then we exhale. We let go. We let go of all those things we aren't, as we talk about in the purification ceremony every single week. We let go of those things we aren't. But we breathe in what? When we do Hatha yoga, we breathe in life, joy, vitality, all those qualities we want to inspire inside of us, that are inside of us. They're deep inside, but they get clouded over by, am I a true Christian? Am I not? Am I this? Am I that? All these boxes. I love it's such a beautiful song. But it's true, we put these boxes. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're little, sometimes they're layered, like some of those Russian dolls are layered inside of each other, right? And it takes a lot of work. It takes what? Constant meditation, constant. But it's hard to do that. It's hard to be inspired on your own, isn't it? That's why the village has Spiritual Renewal Week, so we can renew ourselves and be reminded. That's why now we have Spiritual Renewal Weekend here at Laurelwood. And it's a beautiful term because we need to get spiritually renewed. We need to remember that wonderful Indian word, Sanskrit word, smriti, that divine remembrance of who we truly are. And so this weekend really, it's a celebration also. It's many layers. It's a celebration of the community that is being built here. But just like in the movie, we had the opportunity to watch Finding Happiness together again Friday night. And it's so beautiful because the star of the movie, Juliet, is going back to her home in New York. And she's asking at the very end of Swami Kriyananda, what can I do? What do I do now? She's been inspired. She's visited the whole community. She can see that can be a way of life. And she asks him, what can I do now? And what he doesn't say is, well, hold on to your material things. Hold on to the feeling you had. What does he say? He says, go and share this. And he used words like kindness, right? Just share it, share it. And so, again, a reminder to share it with each other. We can't all live here at Laurelwood or in our community in town, but we can still share that vibration. Ananda is not one place, or any other spiritual community is not limited to its grounds, though it's important that we have places like this so that we can come back and be inspired. And sometimes our lives allow us to spend some time here. But really it's about, where are you? What are you sharing in those moments? Are you inspiring people? Are you sharing the kindness, the love? And so anyway, I just personally want to thank everyone for coming out. And there's no bit part when you put on a weekend like this. There's just many hands. I know that's one of our theme songs, Many Hands Make a Miracle. So thank you to everyone that's made this a beautiful weekend, but also thank you to everyone who's come. We've had some first-timers, as we would say here. Thank you for having the courage and coming and sharing and adding your light. So God bless you all.
I too would like to thank everyone who took time out of their lives to come and conspire with us this weekend. Swami Kriyananda, back in the 70s, was asked by somebody, how do you stay spiritually, dynamically engaged? How do you keep from losing this gift? And one thing that's important to remember, just as we grow, it's one stage of development to touch inspiration, to touch accomplishment. It's another level of maturity and development to be able to live in it as a daily thing, as the fabric of, or the platform on which we stand, or the environment within which we live. He said 3 things. He said the first is, we must be completely honest with God and with ourselves. And he said sometimes that means that we have to be willing to be wrong. We have to be completely honest with ourselves and with God. We have to be willing to say, I know that what I have is not enough. Who I am, the experience of myself as I have it is not enough. And what I'd really like is this over here. Somehow I believe that this would make me happy. But perhaps, just perhaps, you know better. And so we have to be willing to be wrong. We have to be willing to realize that what we think is going to work and give us sustaining happiness may not be either effective or enough. And oh, I just lost the second thing. Do you remember it? Maybe it'll come back to me. It's a good one. The third thing, he said, is we must practice regularly, consistently. We must stay engaged in the things that keep us mindful. We're here, Gangamata and I, we're preaching to the choir, literally. You know, we've all drunk the Kool-Aid. We all understand that God is where our answers are going to come from. That's going to be the source of our happiness. Or we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have made the effort for this weekend and for today. But to understand what's implied in that is a very, very important thing. It's a very sensitive and precious thing. Because if we really understood how it works, if we really understood how we grow and how we become, we'd already be there. Because in the fulfillment of a life in God is every single thing we want. We'd be completely happy constantly. We'd be in joy. We'd be in bliss. So we have to assume that we haven't got it figured out. And the masters say that it's in meditation, it's in constant practice, that our consciousness changes and that we touch it when we come together in these magic moments, but in the constant practice, we establish it as the threshold of our nature. It was a beautiful weekend, really beautiful weekend. The launching of the Institute is such a remarkable thing. And we heard the inspiration of God through these great masters and these endless eternal teachings expressed in music, and the inspiration behind consciously awakening an experience of life through music, and by extension into the other joyful arts. We heard it expressed in journaling and writing and in tuning in. Yogananda said every day we should journal. Every day we should journal. It sets us free. In the Mahabharata, Sanjaya is asked, Yudhishthira says, what did they? What happened today? Looking back, what really happened? Did I win? Did I lose on the battle of Kurukshetra? In the battle of my life, did I find myself responding to the things with kindness, with love, with courage, with strength, with sympathy? Or did I take the cheap, easy way out and get self-involved in it? Journaling helps us navigate and can set us free. And then we heard the power of consciousness, the power of spirit expressed in the material world in harmony as health and vitality through Dr. Chodosh. And how these things we can use these things. A sick and frail body is a compelling argument against liberation. It shouldn't be, and we can overcome it. But when the body doesn't cooperate, we have to use our will enormously to overcome its limitations. So if we learn how to cooperate with health and vitality and stay in tune with that flow, it makes it easier. And then as we grow in strength, then as frailty and old age and these other things work on us, we're able to overcome those limitations and stay in the freedom of spirit. And I still have not come up with the second thing that was in that letter, yes?
It's a matter of life and death.
That's it. I knew it was important. He said we must remember that our spiritual life is a matter of life and death. This dream is going to pass so quickly for every one of us. In another few years, we will be simply someplace else. Even the young ones here, it goes faster than you can count and imagine. And all we get to take with us is what we've become. There's a sweet story, it's kind of a dopey story, but it's kind of sweet, about the miser who died and went to heaven, and St. Peter at the gate says, this angel over here will take you to your new home. And he's real excited. He's going through all these beautiful, these mansions and streets paved with gold. And he's going through it, and he's going, well, maybe that one's it. Nope, maybe that one's it. It's got to be fabulous. I was so supremely wealthy. And he goes farther and farther, and pretty soon it's dingy little roads, and there's dust on the gold, and the houses are smaller. And pretty soon it's down to a little dirt lane in the middle of nowhere, and a little mud hut. And finally, the angel says, this is yours. He says, mine? Why that? He says, well, we did the best we could with what you gave us. What flows through us? A yogi, a worldly person, sees value in what we get. A yogi discovers so quickly, through service and self-offering, through attunement, through conspiracy, through breathing together, that the real value in life, the real value, the real fulfillment comes in what pours through us, what we give. And the Masters just come to remind us, but their reminder is nothing if we don't respond, if we don't journal, we don't work with health things, we don't listen for inspiration in the melody of music and the melody of the birds and life itself. We've touched something this weekend, and every single person has brought the vibration of spirit uniquely through them into this story. Picture, if you will, how important each individual is. And you can do this very simply by simply looking around and then just one by one remove every single person in here until the room is empty. As Gangamatas want to say, there are no bit parts. There's just bit players. To the degree that we show up, to the degree that we enter in and lend ourselves, whatever that looks like, our best effort has to be enough. Our best effort has to be enough because it's our best effort, it's all there is. When we just show up and freely open ourselves to the flow of life, that has to be enough. You know, Gangamata and I were in a funny position because first there was our line of masters and Paramahansa Yogananda. And then there was Swami Kriyananda. And now you're stuck with us. St. Francis once said, if God can come here, he was referring to himself, God can come anywhere. It's incumbent upon each one of us to reach deeply into the inspiration that would flow into our lives, that's so readily there, that would just pour through us, that would change this world, and in so changing this world, change us and fill us with everything we've ever sought. And then remembering the words of Christ. Christ said, there are only 2 commandments. The first is, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul, and with all thy strength. And the second is like unto it. Love thy neighbor as thyself. We've got 2 pieces of music if we can do them. These are the Ananda theme songs. The first is about loving God no matter what. Being willing to just be a channel, but no matter what, it always comes back to our own relationship. But then the second is when others who have that same integrity, that same love of God come together, the miracles are endless. I'd like to end with these 2 pieces of music if we may. Thank you all for coming and being here.